I think, Brandon, a lot of people had a feeling that this might happen once we got the news of Alex Bowman's disqualification, putting Joey Logano back into the round of 8. And even season Logano lives on. He wins Las Vegas. Kind of surprisingly, Christopher Bell looked like he had a dominant car of a day, but it's Logano who gets the win, and he is now locked into the championship 4, despite being, according to Racing References non-playoff standings table, the 15th driver on that list in terms of total points scored throughout the year with no resets. So, Brandon, in light of that, regardless of what you think about Joey Logano, regardless of what you think about an elimination style playoff bracket, I want to talk specifically about win and you're in for a second here. Should the win and you're in aspect of the playoffs, maybe not even just to get into the playoffs, but once we start the playoffs, should it just be a straight up points battle to advance through the rounds of 16 to 12 to 8 to the championship 4? Or do you like the win and you're in aspect of it if we're going to have this system and have this mentality that winning trumps everything?
That poses a really interesting question and not one that hasn't been thought of before. I really do like that idea. Throughout your whole regular season, if you must have the win and you're in shenanigans, then have that in the regular season, and then when you get down to the playoffs, then it becomes sort of how the chase was, where okay, we're going to reset you, and it's going to be a battle from then. Back then, it was from New Hampshire to Miami. We're gonna battle this thing out, and who's going to chase the cup and who's going to be the champion. That was pretty unbroken in my opinion, but there are some exciting moments. I'm sort of on. I hate to be on the fence, Ben, but I'm sort of on the fence whenever I get a good moment of someone winning and punching their ticket in the round of 12 or the round of 8, going in, punching their ticket to Phoenix. It makes some compelling storylines here and there, and sometimes it produces some dopey moments. And this would be an example, in my opinion, of one of those dopey moments. Joey Logano, he's been going through a roller coaster of emotions, has he not? The last 2 weeks, he was out at the Roval. Lo and behold, later on, Alex Bowman's car had a weight issue, and he is removed from playoff contention. They put the next guy in. Joey Logano finds out he's in, and then he does exactly what he needs to do coming into the beginning of the round of 8. Go to Sin City and take the checkered flag. You can't fault a great driver, a 2-time champion in this league for doing what he has to do. And it was a great show, but I mean, it was pretty dopey though, that you can go from 0 to hero, and then he's going to Phoenix. And I also don't like some of those dopey moments. It makes me just kind of cringe of like, he's guaranteed for Phoenix, and just like I don't like when drivers have a set amount of races where they can just set on cruise control. It doesn't matter for them at all. It'd be much more. That's the argument for it. Would be much more compelling if you did have a full for the playoffs part of the season. It matters for each driver that's eligible for the playoffs every single race, instead of these 2 or 3 drivers are on cruise control, but we got to watch the bubble. We've got to watch these guys because they're the ones that are fighting for their playoff lives. So yeah, little black and white on this one.
I want to say this directly before I give my thoughts here. I understand in the Latford system the racing would be different, right? You don't get the Hail Melon move in a straight up points battle, right? And I guess that's why some people like the system and everything. Yeah. I understand the racing would be slightly different. The results would be slightly different when you look at the non-playoff standings, or what if we still had the Winston Cup format or any format like we tallied them up in 1975. I get it. I get the argument that it's a waste of time, because in some ways it is, because we're not going back to that. I understand all of that, okay? But when you can look at the results throughout the season, you can look at somebody's performance throughout the season. Like Kevin Harvick in 2020, I think is the most obvious recent example, right, of somebody who just went out and he already had his one win to get into the playoffs, and he just kept racking him off, and he had 9 wins total, and he doesn't even get to the championship 4, even with all those playoff points that were building and got stacked up, and he had a second place finish in that round of 8, and he doesn't even advance to the championship 4. And then you have a guy like Joey Logano this year, and again, like you said, Brandon, no disrespect, right? He did everything he needed to do with the system that he has been given. It's not his fault. Hendrick Motorsports goofed on Alex Bowman's weight. It's not his fault that they got disqualified and they left him back in. But Steven Stump tweeted this out yesterday. With 3 races left, Logano will end 2024 with the fewest top 5s and top 10s since his JGR tenure. He last raced for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2012. He was 22 years old. That's how long it's been. He has 6 top 5s all year, 11 top 10s. You have to go all the way back, I guess, to 2012 when he had 12 top 10s, only 2 top 5s in 2012. 2011, before that, only 4 top 5s and 6 top 10s. So it has statistically been the worst season in terms of average finish, average performance. I know he's got 3 wins, but in terms of average performance, his weakest season since he joined Team Penske. But because, hey, he got hot at the right time, he got a little bit lucky with only doing the bare minimum to get into the round of 8, actually really doing less than the bare minimum when you think about it, because he didn't get into the round of 8. And the only reason he's in the round of 8 is because Hendrick Motorsports goofed on the weight of Alex Bowman's car, and that led to a disqualification that got him back in. But all you have to do is win 1 race, regardless of how you got here or how many playoff points you have. So I don't know. I feel like even playoff supporters have to look at this and, number one, understand why people aren't a huge fan of this system. But number 2, I think you have to acknowledge that it's not perfect. And it can lead to, what was the word you used, Brandon? Dopey situations here?
Yeah, dopey things.
Think about this. If Logano wins this title, I don't know. This is the goofiest championship on the Cup side of things since Kyle Busch, 2015.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, that was, and again, not remarkable comeback.
Not taking that championship away.
Yeah, I mean, he's a deserving champ. Everything that he went through that year, I mean, he was concerned that it might be a career-ending injury. But I mean, you still look at that and you say, I mean, that's the first time since, it has to be the first time since the 60s, right? That somebody didn't run the full schedule and still walked away with a championship. And what other series could you do that? Only run, high 60s, low 70s percentage of the season and still win the championship. And I mean, people talk about Jimmy Johnson in 2016, and he kind of got hot at the right time, and I get that, but I feel like he still ended up like 8th in the standings if you just tally up the points. Probably the weakest overall performance of his 7 titles, but again, take nothing away from him. He went out and Carl Edwards threw that block, and I mean, it's the system that we have now, right? More power to the drivers to take advantage of it. But I can't look at Joey Logano's season here, and honestly, we'll get into this in just a moment. I can't look at AJ Allmendinger's season in the Xfinity Series compared to how he ran in 2022. He had a Kevin Harvick-like 2020 season just a couple of years ago in Xfinity, and the same thing happened to him. He had 5 races all year where he wasn't inside the top 10 of the race results. But 2 of those 5 races came in the round of 8. And even with all those playoff points and all those good results that led up to that round of 8, it wasn't enough. And he is now, by virtue of this win at Las Vegas and what otherwise has been a down year for him, he's now guaranteed to finish higher in the standings this year than he did in 2022. If you asked anybody which year was a better season overall for AJ Allmendinger, and you look at the final standings and you see he's 4th, he's minimum 4th this year, he was 5th in 2022. If that's all you look at, you would think, oh, well, I guess he was stronger this year, right? But anybody that lived through both of those seasons will tell you, I mean, Colleague was on another level just a couple of years back. I mean, how many times have we talked on this show about, what is going on with Colleague Racing? Why can't they find the speed that they had just a couple of years ago? They had this meteoric rise, and now they've kind of come back crashing down to earth. And how can they recapture that magic? I don't know. It leaves me, even as somebody who's, I mean, again, if you watch this show, forgive me for getting a little bit personal here for a second. I've been a AJ Allmendinger fan for many years. He was my childhood favorite. I've got all 3 of his die casts right here behind me from his Cup wins, but I can't. And I know I'm not supposed to anyway, because I'm in a different stage in my life now, doing this show with you, Brandon, doing my work for Brock Beard and NASCAR.info. I can't actively root for drivers in the same way that I used to. I can't actively cheerlead for them on the air. But even the kid inside of me, can't look at what happened at Vegas this weekend and be as happy as he'd like to be, because, I'm so, I guess, stuck in my ways is what the people that disagree with me on this system would say I am. But I'm sorry. I believe in the integrity of a full season championship. And it doesn't matter if it's the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series or what we just saw yesterday with the Cup Series. I'm going to die on that hill above any other hill. And I'm not a fan of stage racing, but if you want your stage points, you can have them. If you want unlimited attempts at overtime, you can have them. I'm sorry. This is the number 1 hill that I'm going to die on in this sport, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
You shouldn't have to. I mean, Colin was just,
I don't know, Brad. I mean, Pete Pistoni's been on the morning drive for the last couple of years now, saying if you're still clinging to a full season title, it's been this way for 2 decades, guys. You really need to get to a group to try to work your way through that, because it's not going anywhere. Like, I mean, that's the mentality that some of these people have. And then what I find so ironic is that we'll turn around the next day, we'll see the ratings are down another 5 or 6% year to year. And the same people that said, well, if you guys don't like it, you just got to get over yourselves or quit watching at a certain point. And then they turn around and are like, man, we've got some really good racing going on right now. Why are the ratings down?
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe the people that you said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Maybe they actually stopped watching. It's a possibility.
I still have a serious problem, Ben, when you have someone like AJ Allmendinger or Joey Logano, which we're talking about both of them here on the show today, where their performance, either the performance or the lack thereof, does not reflect where they finish at the end of the year, as far as placement for the end of the year. That just shows a fundamental flaw.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's, again, what have I said on the show before as well? It's not just the champion. Harrison Burton had a phenomenal career-defining moment at Daytona this year. And like I said, I'm thrilled for him. I'm thrilled that the Wood brothers finally got to celebrate their 100th win. It's such and Jeff Burton being in the booth. I mean, unbelievable moment. Heartwarming moment. That moment alone should not leapfrog him 18 spots in the point standings. Harrison Burton has not been a 16th place in the standings driver this year. That, I don't think saying that takes away from his Daytona win. That's one individual race. Where you finish in the standings should be representative of your full season. Martin Truex Jr. was top 5 in the standings just a couple of years ago, really, in 2022. But that was the first year of a next-gen car. We had all this parity. We were getting all of these different winners. And Ryan Blaney was just ahead of him. He was the lone other non-winner. I think he won the All-Star race. But it was down to Blaney and Truex for like the only spot to point your way in. And when you look at points, they were 2nd and 4th or something like that going into the final race of Daytona. And you're telling me Martin Truex Jr. is locked out of any position in the points higher than 17th? That's the highest he can finish in points. And we're going to look back and say, oh, Truex, he was 17th in points. He must have had a really down year, really uncharacteristically bad year. He had a great year. He just did everything but win a race. And that plays such an emphasis. There's such an emphasis placed on that it leads to wacky situations in the standings like this, where you have guys, again, forget the championship for a second. The championship's obviously the most notable, most prestigious part of it. But you can look all up and down the standings and say, like, I think Kyle Busch last year. I think Kyle Busch, RCR kind of came back down to earth after their hot start after he joined last year. I think he was something like 13th in points last year at the end of the playoffs when it was all said and done. And I don't know. I feel like, Busch won 3 races. He was very strong at the start of the year. He probably should have been a few positions higher in points than that. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of examples off the top of my head here. But it's not just the issue of who the champion is. It's all throughout the standings for me. And again, I'm sorry. That's the one hill that I will die on above all the other ones.
Yeah, I just go back to there's something fundamentally flawed whenever, like, I think of Kevin Harvick's run in 2021, like maybe it was the last year of the Gen 6, where it was whatever year he had the most races won, most victories of the
20.
year.
Yeah.
2020. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he had the most victories of the year and didn't make. What happened? It was
He didn't make the championship. He had
not even the championship four.
Yeah, I think it was Kansas, I believe. It was the and again, that's a whole we could spend a whole another 20 minutes on the package that we used the final years of Gen 6 car. He was clearly wasn't that Joey Logano? I think that was Joey Logano. I mean, ironically enough, it all comes back. He couldn't pass Logano, clearly had a faster car, but he ended up second. So Logano locks himself, Logano locks himself into the championship 4. Harvick finishes second. Then he hits the wall at the Texas race that was delayed for like 3 days. Then he goes to Martinsville and last lap desperation effort ends up spinning out. And again, in an unbelievable season. And he even had guys on social media and on YouTube saying, like, look, I can't stand Harvick. He's one of my most hated drivers, but there's no reason he shouldn't be the champion this year. He has been clearly the most impressive driver. So, but I don't know. I guess people get bored with, having the title decided a couple of weeks early. That's just where we are now.
Or, just having the title decided with your best driver all year. Just the fact that your best driver all year is not guaranteed to be the champion. So, but that's just not how the game is played anymore. Your best driver all year can finish third in the championship or finish fifth, not even make the championship 4. That still has boggled me since we've been doing this. And it's not that it takes away from the excitement. It's still fun. It's still fun when we get Game 7 moments, but you can't have them all the time.
Well, but that's what made, races like 92 Atlanta so special. And I mean, you want to talk about multiple drivers going, there were 6 guys that day that had a shot at the title. There were 3 main contenders and 3 more long shots, but
that's more than you get with the championship 4.
Yeah.
You'd have 6.
Yeah. Why do you think? Yeah. I want to open the.
That's like a blue, but also to their credit, that's like a blue moon scenario where that rarely ever happened.
Yeah, but again, like how many years can you look back and say, man, I don't know that Earnhardt. I don't know, but he really deserved that championship. I don't know, but he was really the bad. Jeff Gordon. I don't know. I know he won 13 races, but maybe it's just every year that we had somebody lock the championship up early. Okay, yeah, maybe that makes the last race or two less intriguing in the championship battle, but what did Ross Chastain say just a few years ago? I'm trying to win a cup race, and everybody out there is still going to go out there and do the same thing, and the fans are still going to watch, and there's not going to be anybody disputing or questioning the validity of Earnhardt or Gordon or Labonte or anybody else during that era's championships. If Joey Logano wins this championship, again, I'm not one of those people. As strongly as I believe in a full season championship, I'm not going to question the validity of Logano's title because he played according to the rules that he was given and that everybody else was given. It's not different for anybody. More power to him if he can win this championship. But I can't fault other fans, other people within this sport, within this community that would look at this and think, you know what, that's just, I'm not a fan of that. And I sometimes wish that people, and again, it's not everybody, but there are, the people that defend this system, that like this system, can at least understand why others do not, if we're going to continue to do this. And I know we're going to continue to do this because we're not going back at this point. It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, we're going to be forging a way forward. And, but I understand it's been here long enough. Yes, you kind of need, if you're going to keep enjoying the sport, you kind of need to assimilate and get with the program. But still, you're still entitled to, regardless of what others tell you, you're still entitled to your ideas of what it could be. So,
yeah. Well, and again, that's the one problem that I had above everything else. And it fired me up so much that I've made, you can go to my channel, maybe I'll if I remember, I'll put a card here on the stream replay or, the part of the show that we clip or whatever. But it actually fired me up enough that I made a response video to listening to that episode of The Morning Drive last year. And what bothered me more than anything was that, well, I think we'll catch up on the chat here more in just a moment, but this get to a group line that Pete Pistone used. And, respect Pete Pistone's opinions, respect his right to like this system and defend the system. But
he's in one behind the mic. It's called Winston Cup Anonymous.
Yeah, but that was the only thing that really I had a major issue with, was like, if you, I get why you like this system. I get that you think it's more entertaining and, forces people to get hot at the right time and go out and perform at their best at the end of the year. Like I don't like it myself. I get why you like it though. Can you extend that same level of understanding at least? I mean, that's what bothers me. So
yeah, it's a societal thing too. You can't think too hard on it.
Yeah,
it's a societal thing to think. I can have my opinion, but you're not. Since yours is wrong, in my opinion, you're not allowed to have yours.
That's it. Yeah, and I mean, again, I'd welcome people if they're watching this right now. If you want to make a case, I know you're kind of character limited here in the chat, or if you're watching on the replay, if you want to make a case for why you like the system, go ahead, be my guest. I want to hear that. I want to challenge you all to make your case, and we can have that conversation and have that back and forth. If you're going to just tell me, get over yourself, get to a group and recognize we're not going back, then that tells me that I'm not worth your time to even have a conversation with. And so I'm not going to extend that same grace and that time to you, which is fine. If you want to have that conversation, we don't have to have that conversation, but you at least have to be open to that idea of that back and forth for me to be able to engage with you there.
I'm feeling a little more on the fence now about it as far as playoffs or points. I like your notion of winning you're in for the season, and then go back to points, reset points in the playoffs. I mean, there's elements of both of these that I enjoy, but
yeah. Well, but again, that's just me trying to come to the negotiating table here a little bit. And just like, okay, I understand we're going to have this system probably until the end of time in some way, shape, or form. And by the way, playoff points, that's an improvement. I think a lot of people forget that because it's been 8 years now. But the hard resets that we did from 14 to 16, I mean, my goodness, like there were 12 drivers tied for the points lead after the final round of 16 race. Like, at least we have playoff points to carry over now that give you a little bit of an edge. So like I can be honest, I can acknowledge like this is better than what we had for those first 3 years of this system. Mm-hmm. But I still like, can you bargain with me a little bit here? Can we make it a little less ridiculous in this way over there? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it kind of surprises me that they haven't tweaked the system in 8 years now, because that was kind of the pattern. Like every 3 or 4 years, we're going to expand it a little bit, or we're going to introduce this new twist on things, like the wild card for race winners from 11th to 20th that we had for a couple of years. It's kind of surprised me that we're 8 years into this now. I don't know. Maybe we'll get a surprise this offseason with the new TV deal coming in, like we did with the in-season tournament. Maybe that's going to be the perfect time to spice things up a little bit more. But we'll just have to wait and see. I understand. Again, I totally get why people like the system. But it's just not for me, and I think the reaction that you've seen over the last 24 hours or so, it's not for a lot of people.